Apart from that, his Any Origins has been doing a tremendously good work and then actually making all of us proud. So Riva Chetri is here, and we also have Dr. Tej Singh Tham, the CEO of the one of the very celebrated incubation center in the state of Sikkim, AIC SMU TBI Foundation, which is located at Sikkim Manipal Institute of Technology. So in fact, Sikkim Chronicle is also incubated under AIC SMU TBI, and once again, I'd give the credit about me learning entrepreneurship to Dr. Tej and his entire incubation center. We have Mr. Gary Chopal, who is an additional chief architect and planner of the Gangtok Municipal Corporation. In fact, the gentleman has a tremendous contribution to the state of Sikkim on his own levels of bringing a monumental structures in the state of Sikkim, which has been into the capacity of building the tourism industry as well, and also other infrastructure, which is actually helping Sikkim to boom in its own sectors, other related sectors. So, and we have been joined by Mr. Sonam Norge Lachungpa, the President of Travel Agents Association of Sikkim, a young gentleman who has been contributing to the state of Sikkim, specifically in the tourism industry. And on my left, we have been joined by Mrs. Choden Gacho, the Joint Secretary from the Commerce and Industry Department. So once again, can we have a huge round of applause, because we are going to start with the discussion. First of all, since it's an entrepreneur's conclave, and we would like to start off with the young gentleman, and we just, because I had a time slot for 45 minutes, but since we're running out of time and we have several other panels as well, we want to wrap up within 30 minutes. And I want your responses to be quick enough and also be critical as well, because this is a media platform, so we want it to be critical, so that when we submit the report to the government of Sikkim, we want the entire report to be critical enough, and on those critical points, we can ask the government to respond to it, and we can work to create an economy in the state of Sikkim. We'll start with Mr. Riva Chetri. As far as I have the knowledge about, like, we started actually talking about entrepreneurship through media, maybe back in the 2016-17 onwards, and then later the word entrepreneurship has been really fancy, you know, because more than people understanding the entrepreneurs and the entrepreneurship, it has become very fancy. Everyone in the nook and corner of the state have started calling them as an entrepreneur, but there's a lot behind that. So since 2015-16 onwards and today, you have been exploring Any Taxi and Northeast Any Origins right now. Briefly tell us, how far have you come? Because you are an entrepreneur who have really witnessed and encountered the entire entrepreneurship. So just briefly tell us how far we have come so far this 2022, and then we'll get on with the conversation. Yeah.
Thank you for the question. So I think the journey, like me and Mr. Yogen, like we come back from 2016 when I graduated from my college, and I was in Sikkim to do something in entrepreneurship. And that is when we founded Startup Harbor. It was a small community of entrepreneurs, and I know, like, meeting Nirmalda back in 2016, because I was launching a music app called Sesam, and that was the first time entrepreneurship was there were entrepreneurs from before, but I think a young person coming in and pursuing it as a career, that was the first time. But today, I think from 2016, there's a tremendous change, right? Just recently, one of my brother and a friend, Mr. Dipen, who went to Namchi, and he found out that there were startups right in the college itself. And I think that is a drastic change, and people aspiring to be entrepreneurs right from when they're in schools. We did a pitching competition with SRM University, and there was a student from class 8. She pitched her idea, and she was aspiring to be an entrepreneur. And I think there has been a drastic change in last 6-7 years in terms of entrepreneurship. But myself, as an entrepreneur, like, I have also been constantly learning. When I started back in 2016-17 in the state, for me, entrepreneurship meant only bootstrapping when I started. And because the avenue of getting funded was like it wasn't something which I could imagine right away. But today, that the entire perspective of a startup, I know that bootstrapping is also one of the way. But there are other ways, and I also credit to Dr. Tej in that, because a lot of time we had conversation about bootstrapping and a funded startup. And today, myself getting funded, and I know the space that I get to scale my business at a very short time with the liquidity I get. So there has been a huge change in the ecosystem as a whole. And I can, I am myself a litmus to this. I have seen the change.
So when we talk about the change, like since 2015-16 onwards, now the entrepreneurship in the state of Sikkim. See, if it was not popular and then it was not trending, maybe this conclave would not have been possible as well. Because right now people are talking about it. And when people are talking about it, Mr. Raj Lama, this is for you, like Seed has been playing a very prominent role right now, post 2019. अहिले सिक्किममा हेर्नुभयो भने Seed has been one of the trending names when it comes to entrepreneurship. People would want to visit your office, talk about different schemes, policies and a lot of things. And apart from that, I would appreciate with the fact that you have been in that stage right now. We have been raising an awareness about entrepreneurship to the grassroots level. I don't know whether the word grassroots is appropriate, but like when I say it, grassroots level. So कसरी काम गर्नु हुँदैछ सिटसेल एन्ड देन जब तपाईँ ग्राउन्डमा जानुहुन्छ आई नो देयर आर पिपल जसले आफ्नो इकोनोमीलाई बिल्डअप गरेर रेभेन्यू अलरेडी नै उहाँहरूले बनाइरहनु भएको थियो तर सिटसेलले अहिले आएर चाहिँ तपाईँहरू ग्रासरुटमा काम गरिरहनु भएको छ कतिको रेस्पोन्स पाउनु हुँदैछ हाउ टु वाट एक्सटेन्ड आर पिपल अवेयर अबाउट द एन्टरप्रेन्योरशिप आई जस्ट वान्ट टु नो थ्रु सिटसेल इन ब्रिफ
Thank you, Yogan. Since SEET is an organization of the entrepreneurs of Sikkim, so we have many prominent entrepreneurs of Sikkim in this organization. And once we form this organization, we have now board also, where we have the founding members who has been a part of us. So this board takes the decisions, most of the decisions. We sit once in a week for taking the broader view of the entire our work of the organization. Then we have a team in the office, which have been hired. And then this team execute whatever we plan in the board. So that is how we do it. And then once we started this work, then we thought that we should go to the grassroots level also, in the sense that far up places of Sikkim, because Sikkim is not only about Gangtok, it's also about Soreng, it's also about, say, Turuk. So then we decided to have a what level sort of a seat coordinator. So we just wanted to give a name, very familiar name, so that people can connect it. So we said, let's call it as a seat level what coordinator. So now, right now we are having around 1,098 what level coordinators. And then we also have constituency coordinators, then we have a district coordinator, and then we have a team in our main head office. So talking about entrepreneurship, you'll be very surprised to know that you also travel a lot, and you also know in Sikkim this word has already catch up like a fire. And you see today everybody wants to start a business, but only thing he doesn't know how to start a business, or somebody staying in a, say, far up places may have a very limited access to what to do other than livestock or agriculture. So I think in that sense, people are aware, but my only thing would be that Sikkim needs a rapid level of urbanization now. Sikkim needs to make township. You can just depend upon two towns. You have today Gangtok and Namche. But entrepreneurship thrives mostly in towns. So we have to create, I think this government has to really concentrate upon making a new township. I think now wonderful that SM government has come up with this 6 districts now. So my request to the government would be that make this new district headquarters as planned as possible, so that you can create this entrepreneurship culture, and then that will be one of the main thrust area. And we also need to get private, just now I talked also in my speech that we need to get private people also to invest in our local infrastructure. Government cannot just do it. So we have to really find a way to make PPP model work in the Sikkim, or maybe find ways so that we can empower GMCs. How can they raise fund? They can raise bond also. Some of the GMC doesn't know it, but then you can also raise bonds. And today, if you talk about, say, Mumbai has the annual budget of 45,000 crore. That is the budget they have, GMC in Mumbai. So that's kind of budget they are working into. So this township has to develop by these GMC areas only. So that we have to really empower them. And my thing would be that in the days to come, if you really want to promote entrepreneurship, those which already have the fire in the belly among our youths, the number of self-help groups we come across was around 6,000 self-help groups. So you divide with the 10 members, it comes around 60,000. So that's many people are involved in this particular entrepreneurship. We really need to find how to channelize it. The way the government comes in to find the right policies. And there comes the department of our main parent department, commerce and industry. We are really requesting them to really have one single window system. They have to really fire it up. I'm a part of them, but I would like to request the department, because you are our parent department, you really have to work extra. You cannot be like a typical government department with work 10 to 4. Then you cannot just cater to over this growing demand for these entrepreneurs. So I request the department also to really come to the level of entrepreneurs, because entrepreneurs are a guy who can just work on Sunday also. I have to get Saturday also. I just can't say Saturday is all off. Like, then how do I work? So everybody has to chip in and really try to create the ecosystem. Ecosystem cannot be built by one person.
Yeah.
So
Mr.
today
Raj, I just want to know is we'll talk about the policies and scheme
Yeah.
as well. So just give me yes or no. Has it been really challenging when it comes to the grassroots to understand the word entrepreneurs and entrepreneurship? Has it been challenging for you as a seed cell representative?
Not at all, not at all. Like, you'll be surprised to know that our people are really understand this word called entrepreneurship, and they really want to embrace it, because like in the long term, they all know that if you want to create wealth, private sector is the way you can make wealth properly without doing hanky panky.
We'll talk about that.
Okay.
Now let's get into, because we have other technical person who can comment on that. I just want this question to be put up to Mr. Sonam Norgelachingpa, the president of TAS here. I want you to carry a mic. So tourism industry is one of the industry, if you just don't talk about entrepreneur and entrepreneurship also, tourism कोही कारणले गर्दाखेरि सिक्किम is like having a very viable economy when you talk about the economy in सिक्किममा. So tourism अहिले ट्रेडिसनल प्रकारले नै चलिरहेको थियो नि त. इनफ्याक्ट लाइक विल ओपन अप टुर्स एन्ड ट्राभल एजेन्सी भयो, टुरिज्म रिलेटेड जति पनि सर्भिसेसहरू प्रोभाइड गर्ने चलिरहेको थियो. तर अहिले जुन चाहिँ अन्टरप्रेन्योरसिप भन्ने वर्ड छ, टुरिज्मको पनि भेरियस भर्टिकल्स गर्न सकिन्छ नि त. सो बिङ अ टास्क प्रेसिडेन्ट, हाउ डु यु सी द इकोसिस्टम इन द टुरिज्म सेक्टरमा पर्टिकुलरली? कतिको अन्टरप्रेन्योर्सहरू भाइब्रेन्ट भएर अगाडि आएर चाहिँ अपार्ट फ्रम जस्ट होटेल, restaurants, or whatever services, what are the new things that are coming into the tourism entrepreneurship ecosystem?
Well, I'll talk about how I started. Right? Way back, 20 years back, when I started tourism, at that point of time, it was just a starting point. So there was nothing. So when I was in school, since I'm from Lachung, it's one of the tourist destinations, famous tourist destinations, everyone know it. So I see a lot of tourists coming there. So when that time I was in school. So when a lot of tourists are coming there, so from that I used to think like, why not, that so many tourists are coming in our place, so I should take benefit out of it. So then I used to be a tour guide. In 20 years back, I used to be a tour guide. Then I started learning. What is tourism, Then I started learning. Then slowly I started my small business. I opened up my travel agency. Then I started. Then I learned it slowly. Slowly I learned it. Now today, if we look back, those days there was nothing. There was no awareness. There was nothing. There was no facilities. And we used to go to Calcutta and Delhi, and we used to promote. We used to go with the brochures, and we used to promote. We used to visit every travel agencies. We used to visit every tourism establishment. Go and talk to them like, you come to Sikkim. We have such a beautiful place. We have so many things to see. We have got so many things. Our cultures are rich, biodiversity, or so many things. We used to tell like that. But now we see online thing is happening, that digital platform is there. So many things happening right now. And if we see those days, there was no hotel. Now today we have 5-star hotel. Today, if we talk about right from the village tourism, people can come and experience with the village people. We have a village experience. And the best thing about Sikkim is we have a rich biodiversity. Also in the culture, if we talk about our culture, like Sikkimese culture, there are, Lefchad and Butiad and Nepali, then so many things we can offer it, like from the village tourism to the luxury hotel. So we are coming to. So we see a lot of changes is happening, a lot of potential is there. Only thing now, what we are trying to do is like, we need an environment to develop entrepreneurship right now. Right now, first of all, as I said, environment is very important. Like our youngsters, they are going out now, they are seeing things, So when they come back to Sikkim, and if they want to start, first thing, the environment is very important. And second thing, what I would like to suggest to the, budding entrepreneurs, before starting anything, you should start working on the small companies. So if you start working under what is your passion, what you want to do, what kind of business you want to take it up. So accordingly in that field, you should work under some bosses, some small companies. Then you learn then you learn so many things. Like, as I said, I was a tour guide. So when I was a tour guide, I learned, like, I learned what's the nitty-gritty, how to handle the tourists. So I learned so many, these small things, which is very important. That's how you become success. So I request every budding entrepreneurs to, start working in small things, small companies, So in that you learn experience, you learn so many things. Then after that you will have a confidence. Then you can start up. And second thing is, what I would like to request to the government is, to start, first of all, in Sikkim we have the stereotypes, that that mindset is like government job is everything. If we go and tell, like, we are a businessman, we are entrepreneur, our turnover is like this, we have this, nobody will believe us, nobody will respect us. Then if we go and tell, like, we are a government servant, then everybody will, they'll not think of anything. That they'll think government thing. So that's stereotype, we have to break that mindset. We have to break that mindset and come. We have to experience. We have to try. So what government can do is to create an environment, and we are fortunate to have such a dynamic chief ministers is already laid down, for foundation for budding entrepreneurs, like so many friends. And the quotation itself is one family, one entrepreneur, and like, one family, it's such a great thing. And this kind of shows like this, in those days there was nothing. Nowadays everything is easy. You can see, you open your phone and you can see so many things online, And these are the things you to look into it.
Thank you so much. I just get a takeaway from your statement would be like, most of our youngsters, basically people watching us live also, I just want to say, like, we always fail to understand the magnitude or the strength of internship, because the youth in the state of Sikkim would not really try for going for internship, or there's nothing called mentorship. We don't look for mentors. When you go out of Sikkim, I guess most of the youngsters want to have a mentor and want to have an internship under somebody who's already experienced in the field. I guess it's the biggest lesson that we need to learn now. We youth should really go for internships under experts. So now we'll get into Dr. Tej Ching Tham, because let's get a little more technical. AAC SME TBI Foundation has been doing tremendous good work when it comes to incubation center. Despite the fact it's just in SMIT, but I see a lot of entrepreneurs are like now really looking forward to incubate on the AIC SME TBI as well. But I'll just point this out, because to get an incubated on the AAC SME TBI, there's a certain process, and then one of the criteria would be to have a private limited company. And then when we talk about a private limited company, we obviously talk about Companies Act. And I'm grateful and I'm quite happy that the present government has started a dialogue to actually sort out the sandwiched entrepreneurs between the old Companies Act and the new Companies Act. But despite that, there are Sikkimese entrepreneurs who have incorporated company out of Sikkim, and they are doing tremendous good work. So how has been the response of the entrepreneurs in regard to the incubation, and what do you think as a CEO of Incubation Center, what is the need of an hour for an entrepreneur to understand? Is it just the law that we need to understand and sit back by just complaining, or is it that you want them to do something else extra? Yeah.
Thank you, Yogan. Very interesting question, and this is a question that needs to be answered a little more. It requires a little bit of in-depth understanding of what the whole, where it all started from. Because to make sense for the general public who have never had a company per se, what happens here is, if you do not have a private limited company, it becomes difficult for you to raise funds. That was one of the major hurdles for the startup or for the founders or co-founders to run a business. Having said that, there is no restrictions in running a business as a proprietorship as well. There is nothing wrong in running a business as a proprietorship. The only difference that you will face is, the only thing is that we may not be able to pay the taxes that need to be paid to our government. That could be one of the hindrance. Otherwise, if we look at it, we have on our on the dais itself, Mr. Riwaz is here. So likewise, there are many who have created companies and registered outside the state of Sikkim. If at all you are looking at raising funds and raising funds from investor, that is bringing money from outside the state of Sikkim. If you have to bring funds from outside the state of Sikkim, that could be a requirement. We as an incubator, supported by the government of India, with funds coming in from the central government, we have been advised to follow the startup definition as per the definition given by the government of India, or Startup India's definition. And that's one of the many reasons why we incubate startups. We encourage startups who would be converting their company, what I would rather call it as novate their company. So legally, the legal word would be to novate their company. You could start off as proprietorship and on day one, hit the ground running, get the normal requisite certificate and licenses that is given by the government of Sikkim. You could start running and checking and start checking if your product fits the market, whether there are customers to buy your product or not. You could be hitting the ground running on day one itself. You don't have to wait for registering a company. Only when you feel that it is successful and if you feel that there is money to be raised from outside because you want to scale this company into a larger company. I don't have customers only in Gangtok. You will see that most of the startups or entrepreneurs try to confine in Gangtok. It is a traditional way of confining this kind of entrepreneurs in a crowded locality because customers are all confined in that region. Likewise, if I look at Hyderabad, for instance, Hyderabad has 1.2 crore population. It's easy to scale a business in Hyderabad than in Gangtok because you have more population there. Likewise, it is easier to sell things in Gangtok than sell in Namchi. Having said that, these are all suburb areas. We do not say that they are bad, but the only thing is we have more customers concentrated in Gangtok. So it is perfectly okay to try your product in wherever the customers are. Once it is successful, it is always also okay if you feel that there are customers not only in Sikkim but across the country, then you start registering a company. You can always do that later on. The only thing is there is no difference excepting when you want to raise funds from external funding agency. That's what I would like to do.
Yeah. In fact, as you said, there's no harm in terms of running a business under proprietorship, but like when you need investors or the grants, you really need to get your company incorporated in a private limited company and other aspects. So, Dr. just give me a numbers like how many companies in fact have been incubated under AIC SME TBI and how many from Sikkim? Let's give the numbers if you have it on your mind.
As of now, we have supported 71 startups altogether. This is from across 17 states of the country. It includes, we have startup as far as Andamans and we have people coming in all the way from Kerala. You'll also be surprised and pleased to know one of our startup who was incubated and supported here because the major belief and what we all think is that softwares are always built in Bangalore. We wanted to change this narrative. We wanted to change the stereotyping of places where things are done better in Bangalore than in the lesser known places or underserved region. So what we did was we have supported a startup all the way from Odisha coming in here, supported them and encouraged them, and then they went on to win a 1.5 crore grant from Ministry of Defense. These guys were building a software that can train Indian Air Force pilots. That dip we have gone. We are also interested because when I try to tell you this, it might be, you might assume that we are supporting a whole lot of diaspora people across the globe or across the country. It's important for us to bring people and understand how it is done. I was just talking to Riwaj. It's important that we create the examples here inside the place where we want to create the ecosystem so that people learn and get motivated. The same example I would like to highlight what happened in Chennai about 5 years ago. There was no Joho, there was no Freshwork. I think we are all aware of it, where Freshwork is today. Today they are listed in NASDAQ and it is listed in the New York Stock Exchange. That is where they are. But about 5 to 7 years ago, Chennai did not have a startup ecosystem. All the startups used to go to Bangalore. 2 startups who went on to start their business in Chennai. Today, the ecosystem in Tamil Nadu is so huge. That is what we wanted to create. It has to create an example. Somebody has to become an example here so that we can also look up and say, well, yes, there's a business that is viable. We have always thought that we have to go to Bangalore to have a startup. It is not always like that. We can still stay here. We are all very, very connected today. The internet has made the world a very small world today. Therefore, anything that you sell here is also visible across the globe. Only thing that we have to do is we are supposed to make sure that we are selling to the right set of people. From that perspective, I feel the globalization that is taking shape with the technology that's coming in is phenomenal.
Out of 71, how many from Sikkim?
Oh, I missed that answer. Out of the 71, if I remember it correctly, I think it is 24 of them are from Sikkim.
Okay, those are all private limited companies?
We have encouraged most of them to be private limited company because many of them wanting to raise funds or many of the grant agency. Okay, since this has come up, let me also put this straight. Many of the granting agencies, including the CSR, we are also happy to announce and make you know that SAP Lab, which is a software company, an American software company, has never invested in the eastern part of the country, has given a CSR grant to 2 of our startups associated with us. Similarly, HDFC spent about 360 crore rupees last year, in the previous year, They have never come to the northeastern part of the world to invest into startup, came in and invested about 25 lakh rupees to some of our startups. So I think this is just the beginning. Similarly, we also reached out to companies like New Maliga refineries to spend their CSR earnings, because CSR is again a very dicey subject. So to spend this on the startups, because the new definition that has just recently included as per the Income Tax Act allows CSR to be spent on startups. But having said that, these investments are done only to startup which has got a registered private limited company, and that is where we request our startups to register, encourage our startup to register as private limited company to gain access majorly to the funds, not for any other reason, but to gain access to the funds.
Yeah, thank you so much. In fact, the number is quite appreciable, 124 that you said, and we hope to see more entrepreneurs come in and then they start up a company and they do great, so that not just the state of Sikkim but will contributing to the Indian economy as well. So I'll just get to Mr. Gary Chopel, who is the additional chief architect planner from Gangtok Municipal Corporation. I wanted him to be in the panel because it is very important for us to understand from the point of view about the infrastructure and other aspects where that's going to support the entrepreneurs in the state of Sikkim. For example, incubation centers where you get incubated and where you learn the ABCs of being an entrepreneur, and then talk about the network, because I personally feel if you're not networking, you're not working, and if you have a good network, that's your good net worth. So I feel that's what the incubation center has proven to me, because I've been exploring a lot of good network. I've been networking with people. My question to you would be you have been giving us the monumental projects in the state of Sikkim, and that we've been appreciated by the different people from the different walks of life. But when it comes to entrepreneurship, let's talk about the the infrastructure. What do you think should be the government initiative when it comes to supporting entrepreneurs? Like, for example, one is incubation center, the other is the co-working space. What's on your mind right now? What do you think is so important right now when it just comes to infrastructure and the other ideas? You say.
Hello. Yeah. Thank you so much. I'm having a wonderful afternoon, because I'm sharing a panel with such eminent personalities. I myself, I would say a green beat to this whole event, but being indirectly part of the whole entrepreneur entrepreneur conclave, I think what I will be able to bring to this conclave would be a slightly different take, because I want to put the spotlight on the industry that I actually reflect, which is construction. Now, what I feel is, even I was going through the whole program of the 2 days listing that you've done, and it's very heartening. I actually want to stay for the whole evening and tomorrow as well, because a lot of focus is on the existing industry that we have and how we're trying to scale it up and maximize, right? So, and primary focus is on agro and tourism. But what I also feel is if we could, throw some spotlight, and the seed cell could, I think, take a lead to this, as to bring the whole focus also on existing industry that we already have. For example, construction. Okay. Now, construction and entrepreneurship is interlinked, because you will not have a setup like how Dr. Tej has a world-class facility. It's a facility in a space of about 16,000 square feet, right? So apart from that, what I want the young entrepreneurs and the minds to work on is, I'm playing the devil's advocate here, is also look at maybe a startup or on a whole ecosystem where we will focus on producing our own produce and using them in the infrastructure that we are actually trying to create to sustain the whole entrepreneur setup, right? For example, I was just talking to, I think, Norgay that time about homestays. Now, when we talk about homestays, it's a very novel idea of the government that we are going to set up so many homestays right away. But also, I think if the thought and the process of the policy would be also put in mind that, let's say, 10% of the construction material that we use has to be from a startup supporting construction, industry. Okay. Now, what will happen is, see, construction industry is already a set industry. You have a set market, We kind of overlook it because we think it's only the business community could domain, and then we don't want to venture into it as such. But what I feel is, in the finishing time, of course, things like, hard steels like steel, cement, which has to come from outside the state, we really don't have control over that. But for something like, let's say, wood, bamboo, that time I think someone was talking about bamboo. We have a great bamboo mission, and if the bamboo can be used to, let's say, produce some facility like this, and we could use Dr. Tejko, incubation facility to produce material which is recycled. Okay, now I also work in the corporation, And what we are also trying to promote is concepts of, wealth from waste, right? Now, cities like Indore, they're already so far ahead. Apart from wealth, they're focusing on energy, energy from waste. So if we focus on construction, for example, and then what I feel is there's so much construction activity. Everyone here, almost every second person would be interlinked, or they'll be doing some sort of a construction activity, either making a bed or making a building or whatever. But in that, there's a lot of construction waste that is being produced. Okay. Now, I work in the corporation, so I see a lot of waste that is coming up, and then we have only one landfill where everything is being dumped. And this idea or this thought came when one of my friends said, he called me, and then a lot of friends just called here and there. So they just called and said, "Mero gharko tyo toreko saman tero tola landfill ma haldena hare." I said, "Okay, send it." Okay. Then I thought, what is this landfill all about? So हाम्रो landfill ma चाहिँ actually what we are doing is we are not utilizing it. So I want to throw this idea to the entrepreneur, whole setup here, to maybe don't look at waste as just waste, but if you can segregate the construction waste, there's a lot of opportunity. Because in construction, you can recycle a lot of things. For example, PET bottles, we just banned it, right? So the plastic bottles, now what is happening is, plastic is still being produced. So plastics, if you can recycle it and produce it to a grade which can be reused. For example, even the road ministry, I was watching a documentary where Mr. Nitin Gadkari was mentioning about 10% of reusable plastic or reusable rubber, that can be consumed in the bitumen. Now what that means is basically the roads that we are producing, if we can use 10% of the plastic that's actually coming out from this venue here itself, it's great. Right? And हामी कतिवटा फुटपाथ बनाइरहेको छ, construction wall बनाइरहेको छ, झोरा बनाइरहेको छ. So what we feel is, if entrepreneurs can come up with some ideas where they say that we want to come up with a system where we will make this jora which will be waterproof or whatever, I think corporation would be very, very happy and excited to get into an R&D with those kind of people and come up with a new set of industry, right? Now talking about industry again, I do a lot of design construction like spaces like this. So what I also felt at times was, once the building is more or less set, then things like the curtains, for example, fabric, right? We have a lovely directorate of handlooms and handicraft. We are not utilizing facilities like that, the young minds, they are just focusing on, let's say, agro-tourism, which is great because, TAS and other agencies have done a lot of good work on that. But if we can utilize our facilities like that, that's going to be a very good setup where maybe, we could come up with a policy where 50% of the fabric used in the hotels, for example, maybe curtains, could be brought from our own people who have a new industry coming up from there, So tourism is basically giving rise to new industry in terms of infrastructure where new products can come up, right? There was one fellow who came to me to just give an idea about how good his brick was. So he was a local guy. He had a nice plot of land next to the river. So he started making his own brick. But I told him that your brick will not work because it's too heavy. Okay. But then he was very convinced about his product, that it has to be really good. And that is what I felt was passion. Okay. So when we talk about entrepreneurship or any business, I feel I'm a good architect because I'm a very passionate architect. I take up my work assignment very seriously and I try to come up with the best solution. So I saw passion in this fellow, and then I told him that instead of this, why don't you make drains or gutters, And we have a lot of gutters because our पारमा के हुन्छ भने त्यो concrete setting गर्ने time पाउँदैन है आयो पानी परिहाल्छ. So the curing process राम्रो नभएकोले there are a lot of these failures in construction. हामीले यस्तो चिजहरु चाहिँ gutters, drains in big infrastructure which we are doing, the government is doing big infrastructure, private facilities are doing big infrastructure. So we come up with a mandate where the open areas, the pavers are all have to be locally produced. Imagine, and then we use the PET recycled plastics from maybe 10-15% we can be worked on there. It'll be great. So what I feel is like, this is a great platform for opening minds on not just the set industry but new industries.
Thank you. In fact, through your statement, I could really get into there's a lot of scope and opportunity when it comes to the construction sector, and I guess it's going to be a lot of brainstorming for the young entrepreneurs or the aspiring entrepreneurs who want to take into the construction sector. But since you are a very prominent architect in the state of Sikkim, I would also want you to put up a proposal to the government of Sikkim to have incubation centers, co-working space, and other relevant infrastructure so that it would be very easy for the so-called, let's be very honest, so-called underprivileged entrepreneurs to actually get access to that. I want you to please put that forward to the government of Sikkim as well.
I'll just take that one more time. Thank you. So now, working in the corporation, what we are also trying to promote is a lot of open spaces. Okay, so open spaces. Park is not just an open space. It is one of the open spaces, but even a hard open space can be an open space, right? And we are toiling up ideas with a proposal where certain amount of city has to have about a park, right? So one of the parks that we are trying to put across to the government, and it's in a proposal where the government is very keen to see it, So this was the case. We are proposing a facility not just for young entrepreneurs to use it as a co-working space, but also for a space where the elderly and the old people can go to share ideas, because a lot of times you need mentorship, right? And elderly ko ma juncho aba unako timeless wisdom huncha, हैन? Unarले maybe they can always guide the youngsters on a certain thing. So the corporation is trying to promote these parks or cities which will have facilities for young minds, incubation, and for older people to come as a club. They could just come, talk to their friends, and the young minds like we can probably go and talk to them. And I think we are more open to sharing ideas with a stranger than rather my, let's say, neighbor or cousin. So yesto khalke euta space cha bhane informally I think a lot of good ideas can be produced.
Thank you, Mr. Gary. So I'll just go to the empowered lady in the panel. In fact, despite the fact this is the question to her. Now we have talked about the awareness aspect, that we are moving out to the grassroots level. Things are changing gradually in the state of Sikkim. Dr. Ted spoke about the incubation, the main role of incubation center. How are they going to help the entrepreneur state of Sikkim? And he spoke about the constructions, the sector, and what are the scope and the opportunity. Now let's come to a critical aspect. I know I may be sounding too critical, but yes, it is a critical question. Let's talk about the scheme and the policy, because we have Mrs. Choden Gacho from the Commerce and Industry Department. She's a joint secretary. In fact, my question to you is now, there are a lot of policies in the scheme, because our nodal department, which we talk about, among the several departments, we have Commerce and Industry, who actually works in close affinity with the entrepreneurs. So we've been hearing on a lot of news platform about the MSME policy, startup policies, and I am sure there might be a lot of schemes under the Commerce and Industry Department. I just want you to highlight in brief that how are the schemes coming to the grassroots level, or coming to the public spaces right now through your department, and how is it helping to build up the entrepreneurship ecosystem, and how are the responses from the entrepreneurs towards the schemes and policies which has been coming under Commerce and Industry?
Thanks, Eugen. So that's a very interesting question again. I think the only answer to this, honestly, would be one word: through collaboration. We as a department and as a government of Sikkim cannot do this alone. And we should not do this alone as well. We have now Seed Cell, we have so many associations, we have societies, we have a lot of these bodies that are directly, indirectly linked to these schemes, and therefore benefit from them. So I feel strongly personally that we should always collaborate, have a very collaborative approach, and do things together. I think that is the best way to reach forward and make sure that the scheme, the intentions of the scheme, reach its logical conclusion and reaches the correct beneficiary or the entrepreneur, whoever it may be.
So we have been hearing on the news platform. In fact, we had a lot of panel discussion on the upcoming MSME policy and startup policy, because since we are live on the two digital platforms, Msme and Sikkim Chronicle, I just want you to highlight in brief about how is MSME policy is going to help the entrepreneurs, and how about the startup policy?
Yes, so we have recently been able to notify, very recently, the state MSME policy for 2022. So I think this will be a very, very welcome move for all our small, medium enterprises, our business owners, to take advantage of this scheme, because there are several benefits, incentives that are listed under it. Now, once it's notified, we are now in the process of designing the rules and the procedure on how to go about registering for them, and how to go about availing and claiming the benefits under the scheme. So we will be happy to share it once it is finalized. And along with the state MSME policy, which also focuses on your basic costs of production, how can we relieve your the costs on production, on transportation, on small little issues like this without burning your pockets and ours. I mean the government of Sikkim. So it's a very balanced. We need to have a very balanced approach to this. I think that's the key word. And along with the MSME policy, we also are now going to be drafting and preparing the startup policy for the state. We are a bit late to the game, but I think a beginning has to be made somewhere, and we'll be very happy to collaborate with, again, all our entrepreneurs here and who are watching this, and we hope to bring about a very, very inclusive and progressive startup policy that is investment friendly as well as beneficial to the state.
Since this is a very general panel, my question to one more question would be,
Yes.
because whenever you hear the word subsidy, it actually is very, it draws an attention of a lot of aspiring entrepreneurs when you hear the word subsidy. So
Yes.
there's a scheme under government of Sikkim
Yes.
as well about a startup scheme,
Yes.
right? So can you briefly tell about that, because it wants to go to the higher awareness level.
Oh,
right?
yes. So the scheme is called the Skilled Youth Startup Scheme. This scheme was launched right in the middle of the lockdown, actually. So we are almost 2 years into implementation. This is a flagship scheme of the state government. And the essential aim of the scheme is basically two things. One is to encourage self-employment and ease the burden of the government on the dependence on job opportunities in the government. So the scheme is, it's rolled out full phase, and we've recently also signed an MOU, which is a collaboration with Seed Cell, where they will be taking most of the, they will be basically hand-holding, right, from the ideation stage to making sure that the schemes are through the financial institutions, and making sure that the businesses are running ultimately, which would be hopefully debt-free and loan-free. And yes, and we, this is a wonderful scheme from the government of Sikkim, launched by the Honorable Chief Minister, and we are working full force. We would welcome any project under the scheme that, that is viable and you feel that will work for you. We are always there for that. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. In fact, I'd also like to enlighten the gathering here, since we have a reporter, so we're actually working on the entire writing part. We'll be documenting the entire conclave and we'll be submitting to the entire government agencies and the stakeholders. So this would be the common question for everyone, and then we'll wind up this panel's discussion, because we cannot elaborate. We have other sessions as well. And then my question to every one of you will go with from the sequence from Mr. Razlama, like what has been the odd and the challenges, and you being a chief coordinator of Seed Cell, what would be the solution? This question is for everyone. Through your view, your idea, you can put forward. What has been the odd and the challenges so far when it comes to entrepreneurs in the state of Sikkim? And as a Seed Cell, what would be the solution?
Well, there has been many challenges, and but then we are in the right path. Being one of the youngest state of India, we can do a lot. But I think the greatest bottleneck for our entrepreneurship in Sikkim happens to be our mentality. I think that is the biggest mentality. That is the biggest bottleneck, I will say. Once you can come across that, I think rest can be done, because I think being a small society, we have a lot of advantages also. We are well neat connected. Things are ready to move here. Within a day, you can meet all the policy makers. And right now, we have a favorable government under the leadership of Honorable Chief Minister of Sikkim. And I will tell you one thing. Recently, I got an opportunity to meet him regarding this global investor meet, which is happening on November, which is one of the biggest events that's happening in Sikkim. And SEED is very happy to coordinate that and organize this event. And on that meeting, Honorable CM Saab told me that by this year, because we were also talking about the bottlenecks that's going to happen before this global meet happens. So he told me that this Sikkim Companies Act will be resolved by this year.
That's a great news, man.
Yes, he told me personally, and then, yeah. And he also said that two of our foremost, senior-most retired High Court judges are been involved in this project. So he assured us that by this year this will be done, because we were discussing in detail. He gave us 2 hours to discuss about what are the bottlenecks that the companies might face if they have to invest in Sikkim. So we went by point to point. So this point came very, very much, and then this will be now solved this year. So this is one of the thing I just want to share among the group. And then like, see, today we have seated here not to discuss problems only, but then the way forward, I guess so. So I think we are here today in this particular hall at around 2 p.m. We're sitting here, means that we're serious about this entrepreneurship. And I think we can do a lot.
Yeah, thank you. In fact, Rivers, you spoke about the mentality. So it's the mindset that needs to be created for entrepreneurship in the state of Sikkim. Just briefly tell us, like, how are you looking forward to actually inculcate that mindset among the youngsters in the state of Sikkim, or then the challenges and the solution?
I think, yeah, like you mentioned, mindset is the most important thing, and like ma'am mentioned, that collaboration is the way forward. Right. Similarly, for entrepreneurs also, I think the collaboration is the way forward between entrepreneurs, and I think the bottleneck that we have right now would be network and exposure, like two big bottleneck for entrepreneurs out here. And even me, I faced a lot of challenges with these things. But like in terms of, I think generally students or aspiring entrepreneurs or people who are planning to get into entrepreneurship, the mindset that we have right now is like we are very much dependent on a lot of things, like sometimes with the government, sometimes with the family, sometimes, and just to recall in 10 seconds that when I started my venture, the only reason I could start is because I was free from everything. And till the time you don't have that sense, till the time you don't take that inside you, and because without independence you can't do wonders. So you need to have that freedom. You need to do it yourself. Maybe you'll fall once, twice, thrice, but eventually that is something that you'll overcome. But you shouldn't be scared of failures. And I think failing is the mindset that we have in younger generations, is that once we fail, we can't do again, right? And I think we should go beyond that, because once you fail, you just get stronger. And I have, like with my personal experience, I think that if our younger generation keeps in mind that failing is a part of the learning curve and the experience, I think we can do wonders in this.
We spoke about odd and challenges. Just a quick response. Will the single window for entrepreneurs be one of the solutions to help the entrepreneurs?
I think ecosystem challenge is always there. Like because we came from a very when we started, we had to spend a week to get a license from the corporation. But right now everything's online, right? So I think the challenge will definitely be there, but I think the single window will be will make the entire process easier, and but a lot of things I think has already been done in terms of single window. Like a lot of the licensing process, at least with the corporation, has been eased a lot in the recent years. But in terms of maybe the schemes, so there is a scheme called Northeast Industrial Development Scheme (NEEDS), and you'll be surprised there will be hardly, you can count in fingers how many entrepreneurs from Sikkim availed that. And I think that is one reason why we didn't avail is, one is that we were not exposed to the scheme. Second is we don't have a single window system for that, right? So I think that gap could be eased.
Thank you. Dr. Tej, let me be very critical on the platform. When we talk about ease of business index, you can just, even the participant can Google and just find out where does the Sikkim lie. But now things are changing gradually. So that is one of the the aspects that we should really focus into. So how important is for us to actually higher up in the index of the ease of business, and what are the possible ways that we should explore, and the other solutions from your side? Yeah.
Yogan, you seem to be throwing all the difficult questions to me. Quite critical though, but I'd like to say that the ease of doing business is a very tricky affair. It's not as easy or straightforward as the way we look at it. Like how we say, we thought we're going to solve the problem by having a single window. And I have seen this across the country where we have been taken across to see how a single window works. Behind every single window, there are multiple windows. Again, that's a challenge in itself. Having said that, we would also like to say, the ease of doing business it can be possible only when there are people working on it, and then when they demand to the government and says that we need this, the bureaucracy is ready to help you, provided you ask for it. because the government has to work on the things that you ask for, whereas the entrepreneurs themselves are not ready. They do not know what they are supposed to ask. That is one of the major challenges that we are facing as a state even today. So it's important. We should not always throw it back to the government. Rather, we have to ask ourselves, what do we need? When we tell what we need, the government will also automatically make policies that is feasible and viable for you. So the first point that I want to raise is on this. To do this, I'm going to echo on the same thoughts like how Raz and Mr. Riwaza said, because you know, the Indian ecosystem is really lagging behind because of one major problem. And if I'm allowed to take it on a lighter note, I think it is the morning walk of the parents that has spoiled the Indian ecosystem. Because every morning, the elderly parents, they go out for a walk in the park and then they say, "Aapka beta kya kar raha hai?" And then it says, "Chimiki ko chhora to engineer sa, chimiki ko chhori to doctor sa," and they'll say that, and they want it back on their children. It is enforced upon them, and they do not allow the children to come up with their own thoughts and in their own processes. I think the major challenge, one of the major challenges, is the morning walk in the Indian ecosystem. I think this is something that we may like to look at. Secondly, government jobs are so appreciated, so very highly appreciated, that there is a quip that we have, since we are on a media platform. If I'm maybe allowed to tell you this, there is a joke that circulated around the CEOs of incubators across the country. We believe that when a media guy went and asked the CEO of Google's mom to ask, this is just a joke and it's not a real story though, I hope you will excuse me for this, whoever is the CEO of Google, so I hope you'll excuse me for this. But what I'm trying to tell you is, so the media guy goes and asks, आपका बेटा गूगल का सीईओ बन गया, हाउ डू यू फील टुडे? बहुत अच्छा लग रहा है, लेकिन थोड़ा और पढ़ लेता तो गवर्नमेंट जॉब मिल जाता. So that's the kind of ecosystem we are from. So we still believe that the government jobs are the best way forward, but to have this ease of business, whatever we talk about at the end of the day, whether you want ease of business, whether you want policies to be reformed, all this has to come from us as an entrepreneur, not from the government directly, because the government doesn't know what you want to do. The department doesn't know what you want. So it is us who have to tell the government that we need this. Only when you tell the government, then the government is ready to make changes accordingly. That's what I feel. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. So there should be a demand, and then will the supply come in. And also, no offense to the government people, in fact the people working in the government sector, we are not telling you like not to opt for it, but if you are not really into that, I guess you can always explore entrepreneurship. So Mr. Gary Chopel, so what is the odds and the challenges as per your idea, and then what is the solution briefly? Yeah.
Right, thank you. So I'm going to talk a little bit about ease of business, because you know it's a very, very important tool to deliver a quick mechanism of government and private sector coming together, right? So ease of business is something that the government recognizes, and even the government of India at the national level has put it on a priority. So when we came to the corporation, blueprint is something that building blueprints is something that everyone goes through. You know, they find it a very tedious process as such. You know, and the gentleman here is shaking his head, saying that of course it is a tedious process. So we recognize that the building blueprints process needs to be simplified, because what happens is it is a cascading effect. You want a loan. Building blueprint, construction order is a prerequisite. It's a very important document which will qualify you to basically, avail of a loan, right? It also recognizes that your property is legally valid and you're not doing something very suspicious or whatever, So what we recognized was the blueprint process was very cumbersome. It used to take about 9 months, 10 months, and our people are also very lazy. They will just come and give it to someone whom they will say, "Bhai, you Gordinos law," and then they would probably not follow it up. Okay. So what we recognized was there was a lot of that, gray area where they would say that my file is with your office, but it was never with our office as such, So what we recognized was that this whole process has to be simplified. So at the corporation, what we did was, now see, in Gangtok, town planning is handled in 2 ways. One is urban development, which handles urban sites of allotted in nature, and one is private sites, which the corporation handles, GMC. So what we did was, private sites are simpler. So we will then do something called fast tracking system. Okay, now in fast tracking system, what happens is, it's something like passport. So you pay a little bit of premium, which is very little, So a plot size of maybe 30 by 40, which is the usual case which comes to the corporation. We levy a charge of 5 rupees, which used to come to about 6,000 rupees as an application fast tracking fee, right? A lot of people came for that because they wanted their loans to be disbursed very fast. So it was a great facility which the local gentries, they all welcomed, and then they said like, it was wonderful. But then again, what we realized was these people would come to the office all the time, and during the times of COVID, COVID was a great leveler, and everyone came to almost at the same level, right? So what we realized was we need to come up with a tool which is at par with and in line with ease of business, and we thought, why cannot we issue building permits online? Okay, so what it basically entails is something like what Rewaj and Raj, they were talking about, having licenses online. So now it's so easy to basically just click on a button, and if you have all your prerequisites complete, we will issue your license within 24 or 36 working hours, right? Similar with the building construction. Now we have launched recently, Mr. Hardeep Puri, Union Minister was here about a month ago, and we had a soft launch. And I must use this platform also to, tell everyone that Sikkim is the first state in the entire Northeast and smaller states like, and union territories where online building permission in a corporation is being launched, right? So now what it basically happens is something like what a license does. You will apply online, you don't have to come, the file is not generated, everything is paperless, and you will be able to track where your application is. Is it stuck at my level or his level or his level? And you will be buzzed, that your application is complete, please pay, and then your permits are issued. So what it basically does is it helps in mobility, right? You might be having a case of, let's say, Ranipol, and you might be living in Gazing. So through that app, you'll be able to organize your whole inventory. So what it basically does is, now we as officials to basically deliver systems and also come and collaborate with the private sector. So these are tools which we will be devising, which we have devised, and with this, the corporation is almost paperless, corporation is almost on a auto mode sort of, yeah. So if that answers you.
Yeah, absolutely. I just wanted to understand. Basically, Mr. Gary is someone we should really get into talk after the event, because I see a lot of opportunities for a lot of aspiring entrepreneurs. Thank you so much for sharing your insights. In fact, now I'll go to Mr. Sonam Norgelachungpa. You have been the president of TAS for the second term. In fact, congratulations for that. And then you're working in the tourism sector, as you said, that from a guide and being a president right now, there's a journey. And now basically when it comes to only tourism industry, I'm sure apart from just the learnings, you have a huge experience. Let's be very specific to the tourism sector. What has been the odd and the challenges, despite the fact you are the president, you need to work on that, but still, what have been the odd and the challenges, and what, according to you, are the solutions? Yeah.
Now we have come a long way. I don't see any challenge at the moment. I think only problem is like we have to come out from our shell and aspire to take a risk and to do something. And this is time. And the best thing right now is so many things has evolved, so many things has changed. Now government is, we have got, entrepreneur-friendly government, and we can do so many things. And since tourism is the biggest industry, we can contribute in so many ways. You can contribute, in so many ways you can contribute in tourism. So only thing what I would request to the government is like, when we talk about ease of business, to ease of business, one thing is very important, that whatever permit and fees, that should be online nowadays, everything. So online will be faster, easier, one thing. And second thing would be that whatever the outcome from this, conclave, I'm sure that government will incorporate those, whatever outcome, those points to be, added. So I'm sure they're gonna benefit in futures.
I hope the rapporteurs are really jotting it down, all the critical comments. Basically, apart from the odd and the challenges, we are definitely, the output of the conclave would be, the solution has to really come out. So my last question, because I cannot really take many hours for the session, because and one session like this will not give us a solution. I know we need tremendous more conclave like this, but my last question to you is again, we have a lot of people who always complains and talk about the department does not do that. Now I give you an opportunity to complain and tell what are the entrepreneurs are not doing, and what do you expect them to do now? Yeah, you're saying.
I think that would be an unfair question. I think the more the entrepreneurs come forward, the more they talk to us, we talk to them. I think therein lies the solution. So we would always be open. We should be open to talking and basically just discussing issues, problems, strengths, weaknesses. I think that is the way forward ultimately.
Thank you so much, ma'am. In fact, we are really looking forward to the MSME policy and the startup policy. And one startup policy that really attracts me is the startup policy of Telangana. So I guess we should really try to go through that, and maybe we can have that in the state of Sikkim as well. Once again, thank you so much, Mr. Raj Lama, Riva Chetty, Dr. Tejas, Mr. Gary Chopel, Mr. Sonam Norgela Singba, and Mr. Choden Gacho for being on the panel. So ladies and gentlemen, can we have a huge round of applause for them? So thank you so much, everyone.